Yes, good afternoon, students. So, we meet again today with continuation of our previous lecture. So, we had stopped at agents of pollination. Now, we had seen in the earlier slide what is pollination. We had seen that pollination is the act of transferring pollen grains from the male anther of a flower to the female stigma. Yes, and we had also seen the types of pollination, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Now, in case of self-pollination, we had seen that the anther contains the pollen grains and that pollen grains have been transferred to the stigma. In the similar way, in cross-pollination, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the another flower. But a question arises here, how does that pollen grain carried from the anther to the stigma? In the same flower or in a different flower or on a different plant altogether? So we need to understand the types of agents. So here that day we saw wind, insects are the different agents of pollination. Now we categorize these agents into two different kinds. One, the biotic and abiotic agents of pollination. Here we need to understand what is biotic and abiotic agents. Now all of you know that. What do you understand by the word abiotic? Now abiotic means non-living. Now in here we have two agents of abiotic method. One through wind and another is water. Now what is wind pollinated method called? It is called as anemophily, whereas the pollination through water is called as hydrophily. Clear? Now the biotic agents. Biotic agents. Now here in the screen you will be able to see that there are different agents. Now biotic means living agents. For example, the different kinds of insects, birds, bats, snails, ants, etc. Now the pollination that takes place through insects is called as entomophily. Pollination by birds is called as ornithophily. Pollination by bats is called cryptophily. Pollination by snails and slugs is called as malacophily. And pollination by ants is called as merocophily. Clear? Now we go to the different details of the biotic agents and abiotic agents. So we go to the next slide. Now in here you will be able to see there's a flower called a salvia in the figure 1.17a. You would see the flower, the pollination in salvia, and in the calotropis. You would see in one picture they are shown a bee doing the process of pollination, and in another case the butterfly doing the pollination. Now in case of salvia, as I had told the other day, it acts as a liver. So once the bee comes and sits on the lower petal, when it comes to the lower petal, it acts as a liver. So the upper petal falls behind the body of the bee. Okay, and the pollen grain gets transferred to the stigma, because the upper petal has the stigma. So the pollen grain that has come through the bee gets stuck to the stigma. So as you press this portion, the upper portion gets closer to the body of the bee. Clear? Okay. So we go to the next slide here. Now, for the pollination to occur through the insect, what is the planning that a flower needs to do? Now, if you have to invite someone, what is the planning that you do? In the similar way, if a flower has to attract insects, what adaptations does a flower do to attract insects? So here you would see that it is shown the flower needs to be very colorful, very attractive. The flower needs to have nice smell, nice scent. It needs to have nectaries, right? Okay, so the characteristics of the insect pollinated plants, the colorful flowers, that is petals, sepals or tepals, so the whole flower is very colorful, and there are different shapes of the flower. The flower could be bell shaped, flower shaped, etc. The nectaries are present, which attracts the insects or the bee to come and collect the nectaries, that is, it collects the honey from those nectaries, right? Okay, and the flower has a good fragrance. So through that fragrance, through the good smell, that bee comes near to the flower and enters into the flower. So the shape of the flower could be a bell shape as mentioned, or could be a flower shape, whatever shape could be. But the bee enters inside the flower. So the flower is generally big enough for the bee to enter, or the insect to enter inside the flower. And the pollen grain needs to be spiny and sticky so that it gets stuck to the back or to the body of the bee. Okay, so these are the different kinds of planning that insect pollinated flower needs to do. Clear? So we go to the next slide. Now these are the adaptations for wind pollinated flowers. Now wind pollinated flowers. Now wind is what kind of agent? It is an abiotic agent, whereas the bee was, or an insect was, biotic agent. Now here, for a wind pollinated flower, what the flower needs to do? The flower needs to produce large amount of pollen grains, because once this pollen grain is flown, it is not sure whether it is going to fall on the stigma of the flower or no. So they need to produce large number of pollen grains, and to be carried away by the wind, the pollen grain needs to be very light. Yes, so here you would find the male produce a large number of pollen grains, and they are very light in weight, and the amount of nectar that is produced is very small. But the stigma of that particular plant is very feathery, because if the pollen grain comes and falls, it is feathery, so it captures the pollen grain. So the stigma is feathery for easily settled down of the pollen from the male, and long style. That means, now you know the carpel. What is a carpel? Carpel consists of the ovary, style and the stigma. So the style has to be very long so that it is able to capture the pollen grains. Does this flower need to be colorful? No, because it does not attract anyone close to it. It is the wind that carries the pollen grains. So the flower need not be very large. Yes, need not be very colorful. Need not be need not have good fragrance. So the petals are very dull. So, and there is no fragrance. There is large number of inflorescence. I hope you all remember what is inflorescence. We had studied in 11th standard, many small flowers clubbed together. Yes, that is the inflorescence. And the pollen may have wings for flying in the wind. Okay, and the plants are generally unisexual. So here in this particular diagram, you are able to see the pollen grains are exposed to the wind, so the pollen can be easily blown away. And the petals are very small, not at all attractive, does not have any scent, and you can see the stigma there, feathery in shape and structure. Clear? So we'll go to the next one. And another example that is shown here is of grass, wherein you would see the anthers. They're versatile. That means they are attached. The tip of the filament is pointed, and the anther lobe is just touching to the tip of the filament, so that when the wind blows, the anther lobe is blown away and releases out the pollen grains. So it is very light and very lightly placed over the tip of the filament. Clear? Okay. So we go to the next one. Now here there is a comparison of the insect and wind pollinated flowers. Now here you would see that the wind pollinated flowers are very dull, less attractive. The insect pollinated flowers, they're very big, visible, scented. The petals are very, very colorful, very attractive. The stamens, in case of the wind pollinated, they have long stamen and usually sticks out of the petals, because here the petals are very small. But in case of the insect pollination, the stamen is very short and hidden within the petals. Now in case of wind pollination, the anther is usually big and sticks loosely at the tip of the filament. As I said, it is just loosely touching over the tip of the filament. Whereas in case of insect, the anther is usually small and sticks firmly at the tip of the filament. So it is very sticky. It is spiny, right? Now how does the pollen grain looks in case of the wind pollination? In wind pollination, the pollen grain is very smooth, very light and large in number. Whereas in case of insects, it is big, coarse, spiny, and they are few in number. Right? Now, what is the structure of the style? That is the ovary, style and the stigma. So the style is, in case of wind pollination, it is long and hairy, whereas in case of insect pollination, the style here is short, and even the stigma is lobed and sticky. Now appearance of the nectar in the wind pollination, it does not produce nectar, whereas in insect pollinated flowers produce nectar, that is the honey. Yes, that's what the bee collects. Then what are the different examples of the wind pollination? That is the maize, grass, paddy, wild grass, etc. Whereas in case of insect pollination, say rose, hibiscus, orchid, durian. Yes. So in the exam, they could ask you, state the difference between the insect and wind pollinated flowers. So these are the different points of comparison between the wind and the insect pollinated flowers. They could also ask you, state the different adaptations of wind pollinated flowers. That could come for 2 marks, or it could come for 4 marks or 3 marks. In the similar way, they could also ask you the adaptations for insect pollinated flowers. They also at times ask you, state the different kinds of biotic and abiotic agents, give examples. So you need to make this flow chart. Clear? Now we go to the next type of pollination, that is another abiotic pollinated method, that is water. Now what are the different adaptations of water pollinated flowers? Now anything that remains in water, what would happen? It would desiccate. वो अंदर गल जाएगा पानी में रहने से. Clear? So anything that has to remain into water needs to be coated with something that prevents that thing from getting desiccated. गलने से बचेगा. So क्या चीज उसको बचाएगा? Yes, you know, sometimes it could be coated with wax, it could be coated with mucilage. Yes, okay. So what are the different adaptations of the water pollinated flowers? So the main point is the pollen grains are mucilage coated pollen grains. That means they have been coated in such a way that they are not desiccated by water. Now, in case of water pollinated flowers, there are two kinds. One is epihydrophily and the other is hypohydrophily. Now, the water pollinated flowers are also called as hydrophily. For the example, Zostera and Vallisneria. Now, in case of water pollinated flowers, the flowers need not be very large. The flowers are very small and inconspicuous. The nectar and the odor are absent because in water it does not need any kind of a nectar. It does not need any kind of a smell. And the pollen grains are light so that they can float on the water surface, or if they are heavy, they would be submerged under the water surface. So if whatever the case may be, whether they are light or they are heavy, they need to be covered by mucilage. Okay, and the stigma is long, sticky but wettable. मतलब वो गीला रह सकता है. Okay, so here in epihydrophily you find pollination occurring on the water surface. Here the pollination is taking place on the surface of the water. That means the pollen grain is light enough, floats on the water surface. Yes, see here, epihydrophily and hypohydrophily. In hypohydrophily, you would find the pollen grains are heavy, they're below the water surface. Whereas in epihydrophily, the pollen grains are light, so they float on the water surface. So that means the stigma or the style needs to be tall enough to reach to the pollen grain. Clear? Okay. So, and in case of hypohydrophily, the stigma has to be smaller so that the pollen grain, when it is down, the pollination could take place. Clear? So here we see the two different kinds of water pollinated flowers. One is epihydrophily and the other is hypohydrophily. So here again they could ask you, state the adaptations of water pollinated flowers. So you need to explain that the pollen grains at times are long ribbon like. Yes, sometimes they are submerged, sometimes they are tall enough on the water surface. Clear? So we go to the next kind. Adaptations for ornithophily flowers, that is the birds, the pollination taking place through the birds. Now here you could see the bird hovering, मतलब फूल के ऊपर मंडरा रहा है, right? Now the flower is what kind it is? It is bell shaped, it is pointed, it is tube like. Now if the bird has to collect the nectar or anything from the flower, the beak of the bird, you see it's very long, right? So what are the adaptations of the ornithophily flowers? The flowers are large with thick and fleshy flower whorl. That means the petals have to be thick, they have to be large, and the pollens have to be sticky so that they could stick on the beak of the bird. And the flowers lack fragrance because the birds have poor sense of smell. Now, the plants typically have colorful, often red flowers with long tubular structures holding ample nectar and orientations of the stamen and the stigma that ensure contact with the pollinator. That means the position of the stigma and the antholobe, they are positioned in such a way that depends on the kind of bird that comes and pollinates it. Okay, so some birds with a smaller beak would come. So in that case, the filaments would be high up. Okay, and if the beaks are taller and long enough, it could be short. Okay, so the birds involved in ornithophilia tend to be specialist nectarians with brushy tongues, long bills, long beak, capable of hovering, flight, or are light enough to perch on the flower structure. So the flower or the hummingbird, you see the hummingbird, it constantly flowers or whirls over the flower. उस फूल के ऊपर मंडराता रहता है. Okay, so these are the different adaptations of the ornithophily flowers. This also could be asked for 2 marks or 4 marks or 3 marks in the board exam. Then the next is the adaptation for pollination by bats. Now what happens in bats? Yes, the bat, when does the bat fly? When is it seen? It is seen in night, right? So what happens? In these plants, flowers are large and stout so that the bats can hold to the flowers. The flowers have nectars. The flowers are large number of stamens to produce considerable amount of large quantity of pollen grains. Clear? So you would see these bats are also acting as a source for pollination. So this also could be asked for 2 marks or 3 marks in the board exam. So what did we do? We did the different agents of pollination, wherein we saw biotic and abiotic agents, wherein we saw pollination by wind and water. We saw pollination by insects, pollination by birds, and pollination by bats. For your needs, they could ask, what is pollination by snails and slugs called, or pollination by ants called? That's just for your reference. Yeah. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination and cross-pollination? Now, self-pollination. What did we see? What is self-pollination? Wherein the pollen grains falls on the stigma of the same flower. So what happens in here? What are the advantages of self-pollination? Pollination is sure, right? Pollination zarur hoga. Yes, the pollination is sure. The parental characters are preserved. So whatever the characters of the parents are there, they are also seen in the next generation. Pollen grains that need to be produced in a very small number because there is no wastage. अपने ही घर में गिरना है. Yes, okay. So the number of pollen grains needed is very few. The flowers need not be very large, need not be very centered or nectar. That means the flower need not utilize much energy to make the flower decorative, need not need much planning. Okay, but there are certain disadvantages of pollination. So what happens in case of self-pollination? Even though the same parental characters are preserved, but if one of the parental character is weak, what will happen? The next generation will have the same weaker character. So there is no new variety produced. And whatever strains have been produced, they would die with time because they will not be able to sustain with the environmental changes. Okay. So in the exam, they could ask you advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. So this also could be asked for 2 marks, 3 marks in the board exam. Then what are the merits and demerits or advantages and disadvantages of cross pollination? So what we had seen, what is cross pollination? We had seen that cross pollination wherein the pollen grain is been transferred to the stigma of the another flower of the same species or the different species. Okay. Now what are the advantages of cross pollination? Now it is possible to introduce a desirable new character in the progeny because it is a cross pollination. Say if the pollen grain is falling from a red flower to a white flower, so what would happen? The flower that would produce would be white and red mix. Okay, so what happens? So you are able to introduce a desirable character, so you will be able to see variety, right? So it is able to eliminate undesirable character from the progeny. So new combination of characters are also seen. So new varieties are seen, and in that case, it could be disease resistant also. So the production of seeds is more and they are viable. That means they will live for a longer time. The offsprings are healthier and better suited for survival. Okay. Now, what are the disadvantages of cross pollination? Now, what happens in cross pollination? The pollen grain falls from one flower to another flower. Yes. Now, in that process, it could also get eliminated. So, it is possible to eliminate some desirable characters in the progeny. The pollen grain has to be produced in large in number. Okay. Now, since cross pollination results in the formation of new genotypes which are genetically immune, it may also develop undesirable characters in the progeny. So say if a flower has a bad character या वो फूल ज्यादा दिन नहीं जीता है, when it gets transferred to the another flower, that character also gets carried to the next generation. So that's an undesirable character. Okay, since it depends on the external carrier, failure के chances भी बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं. Yes, so the failure chances are also more. Thus, it is not an economical method since a lot of plant energy is wasted for attraction of carriers. Now, in cross pollination, what happens? The flower has to depend on an agent to carry the pollen grain from one flower to another flower. Yes, it has to depend on the birds, it has to depend on the insects, on the bees, on the butterflies, whatever may be the case. It has to depend on someone else. So when you depend on someone else, the chances there that it may get transferred, may not get transferred. So there's always a so chance is there that it might there might be a chance that it will not get transferred at all, or the flower needs to produce a lot of energy to attract someone close to it. So if a flower has to attract an insect or a bee or a butterfly or a bird or whatever may be, through whatever it gets pollinated, it utilizes a lot of energy to make it colorful, make it bright, make it lot of fragrant, make it big, large enough to produce sticky pollen grains. So lot of energy has been utilized by the flower. So that's an advantage. It utilizes a lot of energy of the flower. Okay. So these are the merits and demerits of cross pollination. So this also could be asked for 2 marks or 3 marks or maybe 4 marks in the board exam. Clear? They could also ask you difference between self pollination and cross pollination. Clear? So we go to the next part now. Now what is this? Now it is called as contrivances. Contrivances of pollination. Now what do you understand by the contrivances of pollination? Now as we spoke about self-pollination and cross-pollination. Now what happens is self-pollination, the pollen grain falls on the same stigma. Now if the flower has to pollinate in the same flower, that means the male and the female gamete needs to be present in the flower, right? And they both need to mature at the same time, right? If self-pollination, male gamete has to unite with the female gamete, the maturity level of both the male and the female gamete has to be same. In that flower, the flower needs to be bisexual, right? Okay. So what are the current contrivances means? What are the plannings does a flower need to take so that self-pollination takes place or cross-pollination takes place? Okay, so there are a few plannings of cross-pollination as well as self-pollination. Okay, now in self-pollination we see that the first kind is bisexuality. That means the flower needs to be bisexual, and homogamy. And the second one is cleistogamy. Now we will see that what is that. We will also see the different kinds of contrivances of cross-pollination. Now for cross-pollination, that means if the flower is bisexual, it is not necessary all the flowers would be unisexual. सिर्फ मेल या फीमेल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक होगा उसके अंदर. Now if the flower is bisexual but that flower wants to do cross pollination, so what it has to do, it has to mature the male gamete and the female gamete at a different time. Okay, so that kind of planning that flower does, so that is dichogamy. The third one, the heterostyle, the position of the style and the stigma. Okay, now we will see all of them one by one. Now what are the contrivances of self pollination here? Say here. Now bisexuality, so the flower should be bisexual or hermaphrodite. What do you mean by hermaphrodite? Do you know what do you mean by hermaphrodite? Earthworm, hermaphrodite, male and female gamete both are present. We'll see here. Now in homogamy, homogamy, what do you mean? Anthers and stigma of the bisexual flowers mature at the same time, as I told you earlier. So they are brought close to each other by growth, by bending or folding to ensure self-pollination. Okay, so the male gamete and the female gamete needs to mature at the same time, and for that the flower needs to be bisexual. For example, mirabilis, potato, sunflower, wheat, etc. And the third variety is cleistogamy. Now in cleistogamy what happens? Some plants never open to ensure complete self-pollination. For example, camelina, oxalis. In this cleistogamous flower, the flowers are bisexual, small, inconspicuous, colorless, and do not secrete nectar. See here. You will see here in camelina, the flowers don't open up. They always remain closed. So the pollination takes place inside only. So if they don't open, there is no intervention of any other external agent. Okay, so the flower always remains closed. So there is always, so it ensures that it is self pollination. Now here you will see contrivances of cell pollination. The flower is bisexual. Here you are able to see the stigma, the ovary style and the stigma, and the filament and the anthelope. So the flower is bisexual. Now if it has to be unisexual, so either the flower is staminate. Staminate मतलब सिर्फ filament और anthelope है, या pistillate flower है, that means only the carpel is present. Okay, so that is in case if it is cross pollination. Cross pollination, it has to be unisexual, but if it is not unisexual, if it is bisexual, both the male gamete and the female gametes need to be present. And in case of self pollination, both the male gamete and the female gamete need to mature at the same time. Clear? So we go to the next part, that is contrivances of cross pollination. Now here you will see dichogamy or heterogamy. What happens here? We see that the anthers and the stigma mature at different times. If they mature at a different time, that is male matures at a different time and a female matures at a different time. Okay. Now if the male matures early, it is called as protandry. It is called as protandry. Andry, androecium. Okay. Yes. So the anthers matures earlier, and if it is the gynoecium matures early, it is called as protogyny. The stigmas matures early. Okay. Now the second one, self sterility. Now it has to do cross pollination. Remember that. Now if they both are maturing at the same time, the flower is bisexual and both are maturing at the same time. So in case if the male gamete falls on the female part of the stigma of the same flower, what would happen? The flower will die. So that is a planning in the flower. So that is called as self sterility. So the pollen grains of a flower don't germinate of the same flower. Clear? Now the next one, the prepotency. In prepotency, what happens? The pollen grains of the anther flower germinate on the stigma of the flower more rapidly than the pollen grains of the same flower. Clear? The next one, hercogamy. Now what happens in hercogamy? It is a mechanical barrier to prevent self-pollination. Clear? These need to be carried by insects to the other flowers. So here, as soon as it enters into the flower, the anthers lie at the exit so that it enroots the insects. Okay. The next one, the heterostyle. The placement of the stamens and the style are at different positions. Yes. And the next one is unisexuality. That is, the flower is either either male. We had in the previous slide we saw it is staminate flower or a pistillate flower. It is unisexual. Okay. So here you can see here, in case of heterostyle, here you can see the position of the stigma. In the first one, the long style, and the other one, the short style. Okay. When in the first picture the style is long, you will see the antherlobes are ekdam deep below. Whereas in short style, the antherlobes are placed above. Okay. So the position of the style also determines the type of contrivances for cross pollination. Now protandry, here you would see the male gamete and the female gamete maturing at the different times. Okay. And then here the hercogamy, wherein you will see the stigmas. Where are they and where is the antherlobes? Okay. So here we finish for today. wherein we saw the pollination, the different agents of pollination. We saw the biotic and abiotic agents. We saw the adaptations of biotic and abiotic plants, pollinating through water, through wind, through different bees or butterflies, or the bats and the birds. Right? So, what are the adaptations that a flower does for that kind of pollination? Then, what are the advantages of self pollination and cross pollination, and disadvantages too? We saw. We also saw the contrivances of self pollination and cross pollination. So in the exam, they ask you describe the or state the different contrivances of self pollination and cross pollination. That comes for 4 marks. Now remember, in this particular chapter we need to give examples at each and every step. Wherever there are examples, we have to write example. Half marks carries for the correct example. If example is not given, your half mark is cut. Okay, so we end our lecture here. Now the last part that remains here, we would do next time, is the endosperm. Okay, so we end the session today. Thank you. Stay safe at home, study well, practice the diagrams, study the points clearly. Thank